Hi everybody, in this video we're going to start introducing the idea of percentages and mainly learn how to convert back and forth between percents, decimals, and fractions so that we can use percents in any form that we are most comfortable with. Okay? So first, percent just means per hundred. So think about that word cent, right? In our dollar system in the US, 100 cents is a dollar. If you think about, so let me see, let's write this. 100 cents equals $1. If I talk about a century, that is the same thing as 100 years, and so on. So that word cent means 100. That's all it means. So when we're talking about percents, we're talking about things out of 100. So for example, if we were to survey 100 people and 17 said they like to go to the movies, this percent is 17, right? Because it's 17 out of 100 people. So with percent, your base has to always be out of 100 to be able to kind of get that form. Now, of course, we have techniques on how to find the percent if your base is not out of 100, right? So we'll talk about that later. But the basic idea of a percent is that you're out of 100 is the key here. So that total is 100. Or your denominator, if you have a fraction, would equal to 100 here. Okay. All right, so let's do a little bit of wording. So how do you write a percent as a fraction? Basically, all you need to do is you're going to multiply it by 1 over 100. And if it's a whole number, you're just going to put it over 100 is the really easy thing to do here. So let's do some examples. So let's say I have 54% and I want to write this as a fraction. So we would do 54 times 1 over 100. So you're just multiplying straight across here, 54 over 100. Now you do still need to simplify, of course. So we are going to have to simplify this. So I can start by dividing both of these by 2. So let's see, we'll get 27 here over 50. And this is going to be as simple as it can go. 27 is only divisible by 3 and 9, so that doesn't go into 50, so we're done here. Let's do another one. What if I have 11%? So I do 11 times 1 over 100. Now, if it's a whole number, it's very simple because you're basically just putting that whole number over 100. And then you do want to simplify. This one cannot be simplified, so we are done. Now, they can get a bit more complicated though. So let's say I have something like 125%. So here I have something over 100, which maybe we're not as used to, but we can have percentages over 100. Great examples when we're talking about markup. So let's say you're in retail and you're trying to sell an item to make a profit. We often have to mark it up. So we charge more than what we pay for it so we can make some money. A lot of time our markups are over 100%, particularly in the food and beverage industry. Beverages in particular, there's a huge markup there on beverages typically. So having 100% or more than 100% is totally fine. So I just take that 125 and I multiply it by 1 over 100. I do need to simplify this, so I'm going to divide both of these by 5 first. So I have 5 over 4. So this is correct, or if you want it as a mixed number, we can divide this out. So 4 goes into 5 one time, and you have that remainder of 1, so I get 1 and 1/4. What if I have something like 1.2%? So now I'm bringing in a decimal here. That's okay. So I still have a percent. How do I change it to a fraction? I take that 1.2, I multiply it by 1 over 100, and I get 1.2 over 100. Now I can't leave a decimal and a fraction mixed together, so I am going to have to clear this out. So I can clear my decimal by moving it one spot to the right, but just remember you have to make the same change on the bottom. So my decimal point would be here, and I move this one spot over as well. So what I get is 12 over 1,000. I can simplify this, so I can divide these both by 4, and I get 3 over 250. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you have a decimal here, you're still going to follow the same procedure, but you may have to clear it out afterwards. All right, I want to do a couple more examples. So what if I have 0.23%, and I want to change it into a fraction? So again, I'm just doing one more with a decimal in it. You're still going to multiply by 1 over 100. So I get 0.23 over 100, and you're going to clear out that decimal point. So 2 spots to the right, 2 spots to the right, tacking on those zeros. So we have 23 over, let's see, 1, 2 zeros. So over 10,000. Now that happens to be simplified. 23 is a prime number, so I can't break it down. So this is simplified. Sometimes we'll also have percents that are written as a fraction. So what if I had 1/4%? Well, it's the same process. 1/4 times 1 over 100. That would give me 1 over 400, which is simplified. Or one last one. What if I had 5 1/3%? I would take 5 1/3 and multiply by 1 over 100. Now, to be careful, we do have to change mixed numbers over when we multiply. So this would end up being 16/3 times 100. So let's see, I have 16 over 300. And I can do a little bit of dividing there. I'm going to use my calculator here, but 4 should work in both of those. If I divide these both by 4, I have 4 over 75. So converting from a percent to a fraction is very straightforward. It doesn't matter if your percent is easy or complicated, if it has decimals or fractions, you're just multiplying it by 1 over 100. So you're basically putting a 100 in the denominator there. Okay, so let's do the other way now. So how do we go from a percent to a decimal? So we're also going to multiply by 1/100th here. This is 1/100th. But the easy way to do this is to move the decimal point 2 spots to the left. Okay, so we did see that shortcut already before. So technically you're still multiplying by that 100th idea here, but in decimal form, so 0.01. But the easiest way for most cases is just to move that decimal point to the left. So let's do some examples here. So let's say I have 23%. So I would do 23 times 0.01, but what ends up happening there is you take that 23 and then you take your decimal point, which is always on the right if it's not written in, and you move it 2 spots to the left. So we have 0.23 or 0.23 as our final result. So if you prefer to just use your calculator and multiply it out, you can. But again, there is a pretty easy shortcut here. So let's do 4.4%. Again, you would do 4.4 times 0.01, but that basically just means to take that decimal point and move it 2 spots to the left. So we get 0.044 or 0.04 here. Let me do a few more examples. So 210%, again, I would take 210, multiply by 0.01, but really that just means take that decimal point and move it 2 spots left. So we get 2.10, which is just 2.1. If you're having trouble with this, with moving the decimal, or you're finding you're making mistakes, then you can always just go to your calculator. So let me bring that up here. So here's my calculator. So I can always just do 210 and multiply that by that 0.01, right? So if I'm not sure, I'm kind of making mistakes, just use your calculator and that's okay. Maybe I have 651 thousandths, excuse me, of a percent. So again, I would just take that 0.651, multiply by 0.01, which really means to take that decimal point 2 spots left. 1, 2. 0.00651. And again, you can always put that leading decimal out front. Notice that when I change from a percent, I drop the percent sign. So that's really important. So this is not 0.00651%, right? It's just 0.00651. So this is a percent form. This is the decimal form. So I can do 100% as well. My decimal point is right here. I go 1, 2. This becomes 1.00, which is just 1. So in decimal form, 100% is just the number 1. Similarly, if I have something exact like 300%, I would do 300 times 0.01. And you're going to see that when you move the decimal place, you get 3. So when you have a whole number in your decimal, you can still have a percentage, just that it's at least 100. So you see these bigger values. When you don't have a value that's over 100%, you see these smaller decimals come out of them. Okay, let me do one more example here. Or maybe 2 more. So let's say I have a percent that starts in a fraction, but I really want the answer to be in a decimal form. So you have a little bit of work to do there first, but because we're using our calculator right now, it's fine. So what you could do is you want to change this to a decimal first. So remember, we can do that. We do 1 divided by 4. And like I said, I'm going to just use my calculator now at this point. So 1 divided by 4 gives me 0.25. So what I can do is just take that little step first. And then I can go ahead and move that decimal point 2 spots to the left. Sometimes you may have to round. So we did 5 1/3% before. So let's do that again. 5 1/3 times 0.01. And if I change this over, maybe what we change it to do first is change it to an improper fraction. So this would be 16/3, and then I would do 16 divided by 3 on my calculator. So when I do that, I get 5.33333 repeating, right? So this becomes about 5.3333. I'll just use 4 decimal places. And then I'm still multiplying it by that 0.01. So I'm going to move 2 spots to the left. 1, 2. So 0.05 3, 3, 3, 3. And again, this is an approximation. So at this point, you would want to round, or if you want to write it exactly, you could write it with a repeating symbol over that 3. That would be fine too. But sometimes you may have to round if you're converting from a fraction percent into an actual decimal as well. So just something to keep in mind there. So now that we know how to go from a percent to a decimal or a fraction, we're going to go the other way. But before we get there, I just want to clarify, why do we need to know how to do this? And it's because when we're working with percents and we're doing calculations, we never do it in the percent form. We always change our percent to either a fraction or a decimal first. Again, when we're actually doing a calculation. So we're not there yet. We're going to get there in a couple of videos, or maybe even in the next video. But when we're doing calculations, we like the decimal form, we like the fraction form. However, if I'm giving a presentation or I'm talking to people, people understand percents usually better than they understand the fraction or the decimal version, right? So if I say something like, hey, 20% of my class likes ice cream, it's probably more like 80%, right? Let's say 80% of my class likes ice cream. They understand what that means, rather than me saying, you know, oh, 0.8 of my class likes ice cream in the decimal form, right? That doesn't kind of make sense anymore. In the fraction form, I could say 4/5 of my class likes ice cream. So some people may understand that, but I bet you a lot more people understand 80%. So we do like percents too, particularly when we're presenting data. It tends to be rather understood. But we do like our fractions and decimals for computations. So that's why we go back and forth between the two forms. So I'm just going to make that little note here. Okay, so that's why we go back and forth between the two. So now let's go the other way. So how do you go from decimals or fractions back to a percent? So let's say I finished my calculations and now I would like to present my data and I would really prefer to be in a percent form. How do I go to that percent? And all you need to do is you're going to multiply by 100 and attach the percent symbol. And that's the same strategy for both. So it's pretty nice. So for instance, let's go ahead and do, let me do some decimal work first. So let's say I have 0.65, so 65 hundredths, and I want to go to a percent. So what I do is I just take that 0.65 and I multiply it by 100. Now remember, multiplying by 100 here, the shortcut is that we, the decimal point 2 places to the right this time. So I can just take that decimal point here, but right 2 spots, and I get that final answer of 65, and I attach my percent. Now, if you're having difficulty with this, and again, you're finding you're making a lot of mistakes, then what you can do is you can just take that 0.65 and multiply it by 100 on your calculator, and it'll give you the answer there as well. Let's say my decimal was 5.43. Well, we take 5.43, we multiply it by 100, which means we move that decimal spot 2 to the right. So we get 543%. What if I have 0.001, so 1,000th? Again, I would do that same strategy. It's not changing here. I go 2 spots to the right because that's what multiplying by 100 is. Now just be a little careful here. You get 0.1, so I'm just going to put 0 in front. and add my percent sign. So this is 0.1%, right? Or 1/10 of a percent. And we'll just do one more here for decimals. Again, we multiply by 100. So 2 spots to the right. Now, if you can't see it here, write it out below. And don't forget to fill in any spots with zeros. This becomes 80%. Now, we can do fractions as well. I'm just going to get a new sheet here. See it a little bit clearer. So let's say I have 3/20, so I want to go back to a percent. So maybe I did a survey and I found 3 out of 20 students, I don't know, like something that not a lot of students would like, I don't know, math class. Makes me sad. Maybe only 3 out of 20 students like math class. How do I get to the percent here? So I take that 3/20 and I multiply by 100. That doesn't change. Now 100 is over 1. So what you can do here is you can multiply first straight across. So I get 300/20. There is a percent sign that's going to get stuck on. And then you do have to simplify though. So I can start by simplifying those zeros on the end. So I can cancel, taking them, dividing by 10 on both. So now I have 30/2. And 30 divided by 2 is actually 15. So I have 15%. You can also simplify before you multiply. So if you wanted to simplify this way and divide those each by 20, that works too. So let's go ahead and do 2/3. So I would do 2/3, again, times 100, which is 100/1. So I can't simplify this way, so I'm just going to get 200/3, and this is a percent. Now, again, you may want to change this over to a mixed number in this case because it's a little hard for people to understand this. So let's see, 3 does not go into 2, but it goes into 26 times, which is 18. 3 goes into 20 again 6 times, which is 18. So I have a remainder of 2 here. So I have 66 2/3%. Now that's the exact value. If you wanted a decimal approximation, you could always put this into your calculator and do 2 divided by 3 to get 0.66666666, etc. So you could always find the decimal approximation that way if you needed it. So let's say I have 2 1/3 and I want the percent. Again, we're going to take that 2 1/3 and we're going to multiply it by 100. I am going to change this over to an improper fraction though. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So I have 7/3 times by 100 or multiplied by 100/1. So I get 700/3 here. And again, this is now in percent form, but doesn't really make sense for most people. So you may want to divide this out. 3 goes into 7 twice, which is 6. Down to 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times, which is 9. 0. 3 times again. So I have 233 1/3%. So let's do one more. Let's do 1/12. And this time I do want to round. So let's round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so maybe I don't want the mixed number this time, I want the decimal. So I do the same process, 1/12 times 100/1. So I have 100/12. I am going to do a little simplifying here first, so I can simplify this fraction. If I divide it both by 2, I get 50. And then here I get 6, so I can actually do this by 2 again. And I get 25 3. So that's as simplified as it can get. Now remember, this is a percent. But here I don't want to have the mixed number. I really want to round it. So what I can do at this point, if I want, is I can stop. If I want to put in the mixed number first, I can, but I don't have to. And I'm just going to go right to my calculator. And remember that we just type in 25 divided by 3. So I get about 8.3333%. And I want to round to the nearest hundredth. This is small, so this is going to stay. So it's about 8.33%. I do want to have you be careful as you're changing back and forth between percents, particularly when rounding. It's always best to use extra decimal places because when you're multiplying by 100 or dividing or multiplying by 100th, so you're moving the decimal point to the left, you're gaining and you're losing decimal points pretty frequently. So sometimes that can affect things when you round them. So I always defer to use as many decimal places as you can or leave in fraction form for longer and then round only at the very end. Okay, so I do encourage that as well. If you round too soon, like if I just write this as 8.3, I don't have enough decimal places to round to the hundredth place, right? So do your work, keep it in that fraction form, or just use lots of decimal places and then round at the very end. That way you have enough decimal places to get the most accurate answer that you can. So that's it for going back and forth. So just to kind of recap real quick, if you're going to a percent, yeah, why don't we do it here? So recap. So if you're going from a decimal or a fraction to a percent, in both cases, you're going to multiply by 100 and then attach the percent sign. If you're going from a percent to a decimal or fraction, you're going to drop the percent sign and multiply by 100th. So for the fraction form, it's going to look like this. And for the decimal form, it looks like this. But both of those are 100th. So it's actually the same process. You're multiplying by 100th there. But it's just depending on which form you're in. Okay. So for the decimal, you do have that shortcut as well, that you can move the decimal point 2 spots left. So that is the shortcut for how you multiply by 0.01, 100th there. But you can also, like I said, use your calculator at this point if you find that easier. So for the decimal, 2 spots, right? Okay. And then I do also encourage when you're working with fractions like we've been doing, is you'll notice that I am putting things over 1. So just to be consistent and make sure we don't make a mistake, you're not multiplying by 100 on top and bottom, you're just multiplying by 100 here, right? So if I have missing spots, I do like to fill those in with 1s. You can see I did it here as well, just to stay nice and organized. I do find students make a lot of mistakes if they forget to do that. So when you're working with fractions, I do encourage you to put a 1 in when you're doing your multiplication, particularly with 100. Here, it should be much more obvious because you're doing 1 over 100, but hopefully just keep those little spaces in mind that everything has a spot or has a number in its place.